Good evening, everybody. We're going to start the meeting very shortly. Welcome to NEDRA's first AGM. I think it was almost exactly the same date on April last year that we had our first meeting, so rather fortuitous. We're having it tonight, so welcome, everybody. I have to do a little bit of housekeeping, as always. We have emergency exits at the front and back by the table as you come in, and obviously from the doors that you came through in the first place. The toilets are at the back of the hall as you go down that corridor. If I could just ask people to turn their mobile phones off. And just also let you know that this meeting is recorded because there will be minutes from this meeting. So, yes, I should have put that slide up when I was telling you that. It's really professional here. I can't promise that this is going to be as quick as the allotment AGM, which was a record 20 minutes, but we'll do our best. So that's the format of the meeting. I'm going to have to motor on, and we'll work our way through that. There's going to be an opportunity for people to share their ideas and views at this meeting, and we welcome that because it's important to us to know what's important to them and what they're thinking. So first of all, I'd like to thank very much all the members of the committee for all their hard work and support that they've given to me, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank all our members and supporters and all the people who delivered leaflets for us. Without that sort of help, it's almost impossible for us to do what we need to do. So thank you to them and to the volunteers that helped us at events. We also had a team who helped us at the Memorial Centre, and a big thanks to them too, and also to Penny and Peter, who have a team of volunteers helping them with the water quality testing. So thank you. There's also a thanks going to a number of the events that we were able to be part of and who supported us and we supported them. So that was great to be able to do. So hopefully this year we're going to repeat that going forward. So what have we been up to in the year that's just been? We have actually been working very, very hard. We've been responding to a number of planning applications and consultations. We've been engaging on the local plan, the 2040 plan, and standing up for our green belt and nature around the River Eden. And we've also been involved in the War Memorial and supporting local initiatives. So it's very important to us that we make sure that residents' voices are heard, and we want to try and preserve Edenbridge as a great place to live. So I'm going to give you a bit of a brief update on the War Memorial. This is how we found it this time last year. And thanks to the help of a dedicated team, we were able to pull that round for the Remembrance Day. And along with a number of societies, the council, Scouts, the Brownies, etc., I think there was a very successful Remembrance Day, and so it was great to actually be able to see that. The future of the war memorials, it was actually on the market, and I believe there was a deal had been struck, a sale had been negotiated, but unfortunately that fell through. It should have completed at the end of March, but it has actually fallen through, and so the NHS Property Services they're back to square one. They're going to have to put it back on the market. So it's not confirmed and it's not been agreed, but reading between the lines there, I would say it's very likely that the Remembrance Day will be at the memorial this year, because I can't imagine that they're going to be able to get it sold and through by then. So I'm hoping my team of volunteers is going to help us through for the next year. So going forward, we've had quite a lot of dialogue with Tom Tuganat's office, and also Matt Boughton, who's the head of the council at Tunbridge and Morling. And he's been they've been communicating both with the War Memorial Trust and also with the Eden Valley Museum to find out more information about that memorial and how it should be treated going forward. So they've come back and they've advised on a number of the issues that are going to need to be resolved, and part of that is it's clear from the actual memorial itself that both the location and the way it was designed are different from its original construction, which I believe was originally in the High Street. So they've used photographs to identify that, but it does demonstrate that it's not only the plaques with the names on that need to be relocated, but also the stone surround. And I think there are some others who would say that there's more parts of the hospital that are part of that memorial, but that is going to be one of the issues that's got to be addressed. And when they're looking for a site going forward, they've really got to look at the longevity of that site, because it's no point moving it to somewhere that's going to get threatened with further development. So that's an issue that's going to need to be addressed. And also, more importantly, because at the moment this war memorial is not owned really by anybody. I think some people say it's owned by the people of Edenbridge, but it's not officially owned by anybody. So going forward, they've got to establish who and how that war memorial is going to be maintained and owned, and who's responsible for it. One of the other points that was raised by the War Memorial Trust, which I thought was an interesting one, is that it's important to preserve the story of that war memorial. Because when it's relocated, it means the hospital will no longer be a memorial site. So what they're saying is it's important that the memorial's full story, including the hospital's role, is continued to be told. And whatever the design is going forward, it needs to be incorporated into the design of where that final memorial is. And obviously it's going to need to be done by specialists. So we flagged up with the Edenbridge Council that NEDRA is happy and willing to contribute to any future working parties. And we also would like to be involved in the Remembrance Service Day planning and any future plans for the memorial. So this is a... No. Okay. The Jewsons project, this was a great example of how NEDRA was able to help residents' voices be heard, and Total Homes came to us to get the views of the residents on some of the bits and pieces that were happening at that site, and we were able to help that conversation going, and it's something that they really appreciated, and obviously they've acknowledged that in feedback that they've given us. I'd also like to say a big thanks to James Mitchell. I know he's sitting here at the back of the hall, because his unflagging help and support on that project, we were able to communicate and keep a dialogue open. So I'm going to hand over to our treasurer.
No, you can hear me. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. Right, okay, brilliant. Hello, my name's Claire Taylor. I'm currently acting treasurer. That's up for debate in a couple of slides' time. And I'd like you to welcome you to the AGM Treasury Report. So for this slide, we are talking about the income that came in this year. We had 58% of our income came from members, and 42% came from a very generous grant from the Great Stonebridge Trust. So the totals are, we got income from members of £2,780, and from the grant it's £2,000. So this year NEDRA was managed to take in a total of £4,780. So we had that money coming in, and obviously, wrong way. And then we had the money that went back out again. So let me talk you through that. So starting at the top, we've got memberships, so 7%, and you might wonder what those memberships are. So NEDRA has taken memberships with the Greenbelt Council. It's the London Greenbelt Council, isn't it? CPRE and also the Eden Valley Chamber of Commerce, so that we can support them and they can support us. And especially CPRE, they've given us a lot of support and guidance on various issues that we've come across. That totaled £225 for the year. Social media, we spent £990, and that's 31%. That's to run the website, to run email, to run the Facebook accounts and other social media. Unfortunately, none of it's for free, it all has to be paid for. Next comes promotion and advertising category, it's £1,150. That's 36%. So that relates to printing the newsletters that go out, leaflets, paper and ink, etc. Sorry? Banners, yes, don't forget the banners. Next, we've got public meetings, and that was £720, and that was 22%, and that's basically hall hire for the audio-visual team that help us, and even for your cups of tea at the end. And then finally, we've got 4% spent on insurance and fees. So that's indemnity insurance, because NEDRA needs it, because if someone decided to sue us, they can, because we're not a company or a limited company or a charity. We've also got banking fees to pay as well going along the way. So that's the expenditure. That comes to £3,205. So going forward into this year, we come forward with a positive balance. So we bring forward £1,575 into this year. We have created a budget to try and see what's what, based on what we know that we could do from last year. So we anticipate for next year we will have 4 meetings. We've given ourselves a budget of 1,000. For promotion and advertising, we anticipate 2 large newsletter drops around Edenbridge and 2 smaller leaflet drops, and also more banners, £1,250. We will continue memberships to those related groups because that's important to us, and we thought it's important that we support the Chamber of Commerce. And insurance and fees, we've got bank and audit fees plus the continuing liability insurance, because what we will need to do is start getting our accounts to be audited, so that will need to be paid for next year. And we've also got event support, so we expect to attend 5 events per year. So it's things like Love Edenbridge Day, and when we go to bridges, and that's to pay for small items for raffles and things, etc. So in total that comes to £4,735. So taking away the balance we brought forward, and we need additional income this financial year for £3,160. No, gone. Oh yeah, no, right way. So as well as the money that NEDRA holds to run itself, we also hold a grant, with thanks to Councillor MacArthur, of £1,200 to support water testing activities. This money can only be used for water testing activities. We cannot use it for anything else, so it's kept completely separate. So far, 32% of that money has been spent on creating the initial test kits that have been bought. So that leaves us enough budget for around 12 to 13 months of water testing, which Penny and Peter will run, and they will tell us a lot more detail on the slides coming up. So, however, we will need to bid for funding again. This will be for 2026-27, so we're thinking ahead. And we are looking for people that could help us with both fundraising. If there's anyone good at writing bids, come and have a chat at the end of the session. You would be more than welcome to join the committee. So any questions, we'll deal with them at the end. Okay, thank you.
I think, from what you've seen, hopefully you'll agree when you see the information shared tonight that we've put the funds to good use, and that going forward, we need your continued backing to keep NEDRA active, visible, and making a difference to the community. So hopefully you'll continue your support, and we thank you for it. Just a bit of a sort of technical piece that we have to do as part of the AGM is obviously the election of officers. all of our hard-working committee members are happy to stand for another year. And I'd like to ask if we have your approval for, if I can do it in one group, unless anybody opposes, if anybody would oppose the re-election of this group of committee members and positions, to stand up now and raise their objection. Otherwise, we'll assume you're happy for us to continue. Yes, so that's nominated and approved. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Peter now, who's going to give us feedback on what they've been doing on the water testing.
10 minutes early. Well, never did I expect that 15 years after I left running an analytical lab as a way of paid employment, I'd be doing water testing again, but such is life. I'm going to give you about 10 slides on what we've been doing with water testing on the River Eden. The damselfly on the right is the female common banded damselfly. Used to get clouds of them flying along the river May, June time, and now they're still there, but they're in much reduced numbers, unfortunately. So, why test? Well, our drinking water comes from the River Eden, although it's pumped into Bow Beach, where it spends maybe a couple of years before it's moved into our water supply. So, whatever's in the river will end up eventually coming out of the taps. We've been fortunate enough to live in Edenbridge for 30 years with the River Eden flowing at the bottom of the garden, and we've noticed in the last few years how different it is to what it was like when we moved in 30 years ago. We've seen a tremendous number of species disappear. There used to be large amounts of fish in the river. There are still some big fish, there are still a few fish, but the fishermen who fished opposite the end of our garden used to complain about the number of small fish. They didn't used to be able to get their bait to the bottom without the small fish taking it. Now, if you look for small fish, you'll be very lucky to see one. So they've basically gone. A lot of the insects have gone. Caddisfly, mayfly, used to see clouds of them over the rivers. They've also gone. Kingfishers have gone because the small fish have gone. We used to get them in the garden occasionally. We used to see them on probably a weekly, monthly basis. Haven't seen one now for probably 2 or 3 months, sadly. Some of the plant species are missing. The river's now got silt on the bottom, and when we moved in, it was a nice rocky bottom. You could see. In fact, you could probably see the scooters or the equivalent of the scooters from 30 years ago on the bottom of the river. The river's also gone cloudy now, so you can't even see the silt on the bottom. All very sad. It might be surprising for some of you to know that there are 6 water treatment works that discharge into the Eden catchment above Edenbridge. So, all the sewage from Hurst Green, Oxted, Godstone, Lingfield, parts of East Grinstead, all gets dumped into the River Eden. So what flows past the end flows under the Great Stone Bridge there is probably a lot of the time mostly effluent from the sewage works. So it's not surprising that we've now had a loss of biodiversity. The poor old Environment Agency, they rate the River Eden as ecologically poor, which is very sad for us. So we've been thinking about trying to do something about the environment in Edenbridge, and the thought of doing some testing, it wasn't very appealing to me, but I do have the knowledge, and so we put together a bid to KCC for some money, and Councillor MacArthur was very good at pushing it through KCC, and we ended up with £1,200 to cover the buying of some test equipment and to operate for 12 months. We bought some nice handheld analytical equipment. It's not the most expensive, but it is robust, and there's good science behind the test kits, which is important as well. What have we done? Well, last September we took part in a nationwide citizen science programme called Water Blitz. They sent out some test kits. We went down to the river and we did some sampling, and there's an example of the bit of testing that we did. They gave you a colour chart, asked you to mix a small amount of water in a vial, and the water would change colour according to the amount of nitrate and phosphate there. It's okay as a bit of science, but it's not terribly accurate, which is why we went to the proper handheld chemical analysis stuff. The tests that we use are well supported by water industry, which is important. If we're going to take our data and share it with water industry, we need to know that they're going to accept the data that we've generated. So we cost about £60 a month for the chemicals, and buying bits of equipment, that sort of thing, and it takes at least 4 of the volunteers 2 half days to do the collecting of the samples and do the analysis. So we have a small team. There's probably about 6 of us that actually go out and do the sampling, and 3 or 4 of us do the testing the next day. So where do we sample? We sample at 6 points on the Eden, close to Edenbridge. We start testing up on the airfield at Hackstead, where we sample the River Eden before it's joined by the Eden Brook. We also test the Eden Brook at that point as well, and then we test a little further down after the waters have mixed. We again test what's in the Eden. We test one of the tributaries, the Kent Brook, just where it comes into the Eden at the corner of the sports field. And we take another sample from the Eden at the town field, and a final one down at Delaware after the effluent from the water treatment works has been added to the Eden. So we have 6 sites, quite strategic when you look at the map of the catchment, and they're all accessible by public rights of way, so we don't have any problems with people suddenly deciding they don't want us walking on their land. So who are we working with? Well, we've set up to work very closely with the Friends of the River Eden, the Friends of the River Eden ecosystem, who are based up in Oxted and Hurst Green. They were looking for someone to help them do some testing up there, so we learnt together basically. We've worked very closely with the River Mole River Watch, and the River Mole is the next door catchment to the Eden as you go west from here, so all the water on the western side of the M23 around Crawley, Gatwick, Redhill, Dorking, Leatherhead, all that flows into the River Mole, and they do a similar sort of testing to us. The River Way Trust, which is further round in Surrey, also are now doing similar work with us. And the Royal Tunbridge Wells Angling Society are doing something slightly similar on the Medway and the Eden at Penshurst and on the River Grom near Groombridge, and they've been extremely helpful in showing us what sort of testing they do and giving us the pros and cons of the different approaches. And of course we're partnering with our water supplier, Sutton and East Surrey Water, who take the water from the Eden and store it in Bow Beach. Obviously they're very concerned about what Southern Water are doing to the water in the Eden, so they're quite keen to work with us. So between us and Free, who I said were working up around the Oxted area, we have probably about 40% of the Eden catchment covered with sampling points now. So we do 19 sites from up near the source, near the M25, down to Delaware. There is obviously a big area missing there, but we feel we need to learn as we go along. We don't want to rush into this, but we do have hopes that in the future we may have some input from like-minded people who may be in Godstone and similar sorts of places to cover the whole of the catchment. So what are we finding? Well, the nitrates typically between 10 and 20 times what the Environment Agency reckon would be good for the river to be of good ecological status, and phosphates 2 to 10 times. Some sampling sites, depressingly, are very much higher than that, and surprisingly, some of the sites, even close to the sources of the river, still have very high phosphate and nitrate levels. So it's not only water treatment works that are putting nutrients into the river. There's a lot of agriculture, a lot of runoff from people who keep horses, that sort of thing. There's all sorts of sources of pollution. We started in March to do some testing for ammonia, which comes from a sewage works that's not doing its job properly, and we found that most of the results we got were very low, which is what you would hope for, but some of them were greater than 1 part per million, which is enough to kill some aquatic life. So it's not surprising that we're losing some of the insects and some of the fish that we have in the river. And this is one of our lovely samplers who go out in all weathers and risk catching all sorts of nasty things from the river water when they're taking samples. So where do we go from here? The first extra thing I would like to do is to start testing for E. coli. When the river's low, like it has been recently or during the summer, it's probable that most of the water has come from a water treatment plant. So I know from some of the research I've done on other river systems that E. coli can be quite prevalent. And for all those who let their children play in the river, and what they think is a nice harmless thing to do, or people who walk their dogs, and their dogs go in the river, and then they stroke the dogs, and then they're now contaminated with E. coli. I think it would be something that would be quite good for the people of Edenbridge to know just how contaminated the water is. And then we got some other testing that would be nice to do if we can get the funding. They're all important indicators of river quality. There's quite a lot of work going on in similar rivers to the Eden, looking at fly larvae, caddis fly larvae, mayfly larvae, that sort of thing. And the gentleman you can see wading in the river, that's Ian Taylor from the Royal Tunbridge Wells Angling Society. He's trying to get some of the insect larvae, and he's being very brave because the fallout from the Groombridge sewage works is about 50 yards upstream from where he is. But river fly surveys are a very good indicator of how healthy or not healthy the river is. And as I'm an analytical chemist, I think it would be very good for us to find a partner at a university that will help us to find out what else is in the river. There's only so much we can do as citizen scientists. Universities have great chemical laboratories, and they also have students that need projects to do. And I think the River Eden catchment will be a good place for for them to come, because we can provide the samples, because we go out and do that, and they've got the analytical equipment to do the testing. So at very little cost to NEDRA, if we can find the right partner, we could actually learn some interesting stuff about the river. Obviously, we'll need some more resources to do this, both financial and human resources. And just to frighten you even more, if you're not already frightened, have you thought about what happens to the rubber from your tyres when your tyres wear down? All those little particles that are left on the road, when it rains, they get washed into the drains and they end up in the river. There's some quite nasty chemicals involved in tyre manufacturing, and all that ends up in the river, and we don't know the impact of that. Agriculture, there's an awful lot of stuff that comes off the fields when it rains. If you have green thumb or other lawn care stuff, the stuff they put on your garden, that ends up in the river one way or another. Pet treatments, if you treat your dog for fleas and ticks with Spot On or something like that, and you then let your dog go in the river, that Spot On then ends up in the water, which will kill the insect larvae. Very, very small quantities of it are needed to kill insect larvae. So, I'm not getting at dog walkers, but that really probably is one of the things that's quite a dangerous thing for aquatic life if you let your dogs go in the river. And for cat owners, you shouldn't comb the cat and put the fur out for the birds to do their nests, because the birds pick up the contaminated fur, build it into their nests, and then their chicks die. It's quite a frightening world out there, really, isn't it? Pharmaceuticals, all the things that you take, and recreational drugs as well, they all end up in the water, which ends up in the sewage works, but the sewage works isn't designed to take out these things, so they probably end up in the river as well, and then they end up in your drinking water. So it's a circular thing. As I say, it's a very frightening world out there. So basically everything that gets poured down the sink, sprayed into the garden, or washed down the toilet ultimately ends up in the river. And the water treatment works are not really designed to remove this stuff. So before you chuck anything anywhere, think very carefully. And I'll finish with this one. This is just Penny and myself and someone from Free. We went on the March for Clean Water last October, along with somewhere between 10 and 15,000 other people. We had a day wandering around Westminster, listening to speeches. Never been on a march before, and it was actually quite good fun. And we met a lot of nice people as well. So, thank you very much.
This was a campaign that a number of residents supported us on in September of last year, and I believe the UK Water Blitz is the same weekend, is that right? And I think your team are going to be doing that part of it. Yeah, so we have somebody supporting the UK Water Blitz, where they're going to do some testing and sampling. We'll keep that one going. But I will be putting out a request to as many members as possible to get involved with the big River Watch. It's really simple, and it's a great way to help protect the rivers. The next one is, as they say, is running from the 25th of April to the 1st of May, and we'd love as many of you to join in as possible. You have to download an app on your phone and just spend a few minutes by the river. Nice way to get away from it all. It's easy and it does make a difference, so hopefully you'll support that when it comes round. I'm now going to hand over to Debbie, who's going to take us through what's happening going forward.
Good evening. Good evening. Right. Okay. Where are we at? Oh, you've done the slide for me. Very helpful. Very nice to see you all tonight. So I'm going to start talking about the future. The local plan, most of you know, will be coming back in October, November time because of the new government targets. Now, what's interesting about this is on our newsletter, it does say 58% more, which we took from the SDC website. Clearly, we should have not trusted that and got our calculators out. It's actually 63% more, so it's worse than that. So that could mean if it was prorated, we don't know if it will be or not, another, up to 2,500 or more homes, whereas the previous plan was 1,500, roughly. Either way, not great for Edenbridge. So it is a district-wide rise, but our total is yet to be confirmed. So a jump of this scale obviously has serious implications for infrastructure, services, and our local character. We'll keep you posted as soon as we find out more, if anything happens with the deadline changes, and obviously we'll share this presentation with you afterwards, as well as a summary of the recording that we're doing. So, I don't know how many got involved in the last 2040 plan. I know that when we first formed, we didn't know much about it ourselves, and we've learnt a lot since. And they did have something in the previous plan called the settlement hierarchy, which in our view was quite flawed. I'll tell you a little bit more about what that is in a minute, but they brought a new settlement hierarchy to the table with a new methodology. In our view, it's still quite flawed. Basically what it does is it counts services and facilities across settlements to rank their capacity for growth. And essentially, the framing is suggesting that Edenbridge is well equipped to support significant growth. So what they're trying to say is Edenbridge is a top-tier town with amenities to support growth. What we're saying is that we've got stretched infrastructure, underfunded services, aging facilities, and it's not the lived experience of residents. So why is it important? It's really important because this classification will pave the way for how Edenbridge is viewed in terms of potential housing targets. So we will be highlighting to SDC why we think this is not right. It is not, as we heard at a recent planning meeting locally, a tick box exercise. It's not just counting shops and things. On that subject, here is a little snippet, if you like, from the new methodology. And there's an over-reliance on a quantity over quality here. Settlements will score higher for having multiple versions of one thing. So essentially, we could score highly, very highly, on the amount of takeaway shops we have. Okay? You'll notice strange things like a primary school is worth 2 points, while a secondary school is worth 1 point. Why is that? Why is that? Why is that? I mean, ageism's getting, worse, younger and younger now, right? I love this bit. A flower shop and a minor injuries unit both score 1 point. No distinction made between critical medical access and a bunch of flowers. So, a lot of it doesn't make any sense to us. And we do have one of our committee members, Paul Schowler, who's very into this, and he's very good at highlighting the strangeness of it all. So we'll be putting in a good argument against it. So, now where's my prop gone? I've lost my prop. Oh, it's annoying. My little In-Shape magazine. Is it? Never mind. Is it buried? Oh, I've got my prop. Don't worry, guys. There's a prop. Okay. So when you open your In-Shape magazine, how many people read the In-Shape magazine? You get it? Okay, so quite a few of us. You'll look through it and you go, blimey, look at that, 123 million. There's a proposal to regenerate land east of Sevenoaks High Street. Wow. There's construction on a cycling route for 1.2 million, and Bradbourne Lakes 2.1 million. Amazing. Swanley Station has benefited from a 5 million revamp on what was that? Secure cycle parking and a cycle ramp. And I'm like, okay, where the sums were coming from that one. And the White Oak Leisure Centre, 20 million. That's quite the upgrade, okay? So what you'll notice there is that these investments, both in Sevenoaks and Swanley, are across a range of infrastructure, right? So, but then, this is where I play the game. Like, Sevenoaks, look at that, isn't that nice? Oh, look at that, 20 million, right? And then you flip over to this page. Ooh, Edenbridge, look at that. We get a lovely bus stop with grass on top of it. Now, what I want to know about this is, has anybody ever seen this bus stop? No. Where is that? Right? Is it the Tesco's one?
It's covered in bottles and cans.
Right. So, buzz around the bus stop. So, okay, obviously that's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. We have had a major recent investment, which was obviously the health centre, which was 13.5 million. But it highlights the problem, really. Unlike the other top-tier towns, that is, an investment, but it's concentrated in one place. It's not concentrated across other areas of infrastructure that are needed, especially for such high levels of development that they are planning to put into Edenbridge. So, there's no coordinated upgrades in transport, leisure, other public services or town centre regeneration, like we're seeing elsewhere. But what's also interesting about this, when you read up on it, the other top-tier towns didn't just receive investment. It didn't just happen. They made it happen. So they've gone out and got business partnerships, funding bids, and taken part in regeneration strategies. It took work, right? So, that's what we want for Edenbridge too. Not to be called a growth town, but to be treated like one with real planning, ambition and delivery. And that means we need that from our own council, from Sevenoaks District Council, and all the way up to Kent County Council, where one of the things we did this year was we put in a response to the KCC transport plan. I don't know if anybody looked at that one, but essentially there was very little mention for Edenbridge in their plan for transport and infrastructure. So, we need a bit of help, really. So what do we want? We're very good at saying what we don't want. We thought it would be nice to stick in a slide this time about what we do want. We want a major upgrade to the Edenbridge Town train station. We want investment in our roads and transport. A new affordable leisure centre for Edenbridge. An outdoor floodlit playing pitch. We've got one. And it's been left to just moulder and die. And, I think that's something we may be focusing on in the coming year, to try and see if we can resurrect that thing, right? You think about how popular the rugby fields are. You have a couple of events a year where all the kids come and they play, and it's quite a big deal for Edenbridge. How good would it be to get that going again, right? We want a better bus service to Sevenoaks, or any bus service to Sevenoaks, right? I think there's one in the morning that takes kids to school, So, and to Pembury and Maidstone hospitals. People who don't have cars really struggle if they have to go get treatment at the hospitals. It's quite a hard thing to do. And obviously access to excellent education services, primary and secondary schools. We deserve more, basically. Right, so now I'm going to move on to Four Elms. Now, we've covered the Four Elms site a few times in some of our other meetings. This site's been around quite a long time, and recently, what we must say is it does have outline planning permission ready for 340 homes. Sadly, NEDRA hadn't formed when that first happened, because we would have challenged that. But recently, the developer wants to put in 450 homes, and the original reasoning for that was that there was a Kent County Council request to move the school to the front of the site, so that Kent County Council could take early action on it, right? Well, if you've been to our previous meetings, you know we've had conversations, correspondence with KCC on this, and they were quite honest with us that essentially we would need a lot of homes put into Edenbridge for us to actually get a secondary school. And there was some debate over this. People thought we were making that stuff up, but we did show the letters to everybody and publish them. Then, quite handily, a chap called Ian Watts came along to the annual town meeting. How many people were at the annual town meeting? Okay, great. Now, essentially, in a nutshell, he basically said that the school that would most likely be funded by the Department for Education would be a 6 FE school, so, you know, a bigger school. And for that, we would need 2,700 homes, right? Apparently, some of them will be in the surrounding villages. I'm not sure where, because I think we would bear the brunt of that. But this bit, I was like, what? He basically said that that land really is theirs, because it's being held for them, and they could put anything in there they want to, any kind of school. It could be a special needs school, it could be a college, it could be not even a secondary school. And as a final point, he said he was keen to manage expectations, and it may never happen at all. So why are we being asked to take on these extra homes that are being built in a flood zone? Why? For what? Because there's no guarantee of that. So NEDRA have been going along to the Edenbridge Town Council planning meetings every time this site comes up. And we've asked various questions. I don't know how many there have been, what, about three or four, okay. And for 2 of those meetings, Edenbridge Town Council objected to the site, which is they hadn't done before. Before, they were all for the site, they believed in the school, it was going to happen, and then we started to give them information, made them maybe think twice and ask a few more questions. So they then put in objections. And some of the questions we asked them were things like, well, what guarantees do we know? What guarantees do we have that these homes, these affordable homes, are going to go to local people? Because it doesn't necessarily follow on social housing that just because you live in the area, you're going to get that home. If you're not high enough up on the list, somebody else might get it. Things about the sequential and exception test. Now, that sounds like a technical thing, but essentially, it's a legal requirement to check if a site, if you're planning on building a site on a flood zone, to check other sites within the area to make sure that there's a more suitable site, right? And we have not seen any evidence that this site has had a sequential test. That's what that's called. And if it has had that test, then they have to prove the exception test, which is okay. Everywhere else is flooded as well, which isn't true. We know that from the 2040 previous plan that showed you all these different sites. But even if it was, that they would have to prove the exceptional reasons why you would build on a floodplain. So we floated that question. And there are some others up there. And when we send out the presentation, you'll see that. We haven't, it's the weirdest thing. Has anyone been to one of these planning meetings before? Yeah, a few of you, right? So you get to ask your questions, and then you sit there and you watch them debate. And you're not allowed to say anything at that point. And then the meeting finishes, they make the decision, and off you go. And then you never get an answer back to any of your questions. You don't know what happens to them. They just disappear into the ether. What you're hoping, of course, is that they're going to use them in their debate, which they often do, and take them and ask those questions of SDC. But we don't know if that actually happens. So there we go. And there were other questions, obviously, about ecology and bits and pieces like that. Okay, so on the 7th of April, despite their concerns remaining, so basically for this site, there's a planning portal on the 7X website. Most of you are aware of that? Yeah, you can go and you can see what people are saying. And so the Edenbridge comments last time, when they objected to it, are pretty much exactly the same as this time, but this time they no longer object to it. They've said that they have removed their objection to the site. Now, as it goes, we agree with most of their objections. You know, they're worrying about the limited time frame for the provision of the things that have been promised, like the community centre and the youth club and the scout hut. They want that to be in writing, that basically these will be delivered by a certain time, which implies a certain level of distrust there. You know, they're still worried about known surface flooding, the impact of local infrastructure, the biodiversity net gain not being in Edenbridge, stuff like that, all stuff we agree with. And especially the bit highlighted in green there, you probably can't read it, I'm sorry, really bad slide design. But the desire for the development to be included and accounted in the emerging local plan. because if it's outside of the local plan, then that's not counted against our numbers. So that we can have another 2,700 on top of that. So what was interesting to us, and actually quite concerning, was a bit highlighted in red, which you probably can't read either, where they said they felt themselves to be unqualified to interpret the technical data, okay, around flooding. Now, let's be honest, none of us are flood specialists, highways engineers, or ecologists, none of us are. And we can't expect our council to be either. But when council committee members feel unable to interpret technical reports, it's important to realise that the expert advice doesn't just come from Sevenoaks District Council, right? They can't then go, well, we're just going to rely on that expert advice, because there are other places to source expert advice. The first one being the portal. On that portal, there were environmental specialists, flood specialists, all sorts of things where people raised serious evidence-based concerns. Our council had access to that in the same way anybody else has. So, while we share their concerns about the site, we're very concerned about the precedent set in that meeting, stating the council is unqualified to interpret technical information. If we rely, or if they rely solely on SDC, Sevenoaks District Council experts, it may limit their ability to respond effectively to the forthcoming 2040 local plan and leave us exposed to unsuitable development. So on that basis, we urge Edenbridge Town Council to broaden its expert input, either by drawing on other expert contributors via the portal or by seeking independent consultancy rather than stepping back from decisions due to limited in-house expertise. So what now? The consultation is still open. It keeps going on and on. It's a bit like Terminator. It keeps coming back. The consultation is still open until the 25th of April. This is the reference. So you go to the website and you search for a planning application, stick it in, and you can say what you want to say. And NEDRA have already contacted Sevenoaks to say that we would like to talk. You get like a 3-minute slot, right? When this comes before the Development Management Committee. And we will call on Edenbridge Town Council to support us against, in our fight against the extension to the site. Now, just to finish on a positive note, this is what happens when you work together. So, this is an example of East Malling residents, and they managed to secure a refusal of 52 homes. It might sound small fry, but hey, you've got to start somewhere. Okay? Now, what was interesting here, the Chief Planning Officer had exercised his special powers to stop the application being refused, okay? And so the Planning Committee it took a lot of courage. Twice they came back and said no to this site. They didn't fold just because they were being told no by the planning people. Councillor Matt Boughton, we've already mentioned it before, we have had dealings with him and he's been super helpful, hasn't he, to us. He voted for refusal against his own planning officer's advice. And the chairman of Teston Parish Council, Peter Cooling, also spoke against the plan. And it wasn't about being anti-development, it was about making sure the right development happened in the right place with the community on board. And we believe the same is possible here in Edenbridge if we work in partnership and we have the confidence and courage to act when things are not right for our town. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very good. Thank you very much indeed. I'm just moving on to coming up soon. We're going to be involved with an event at Bridges at the beginning of June. I think it's the 6th of June, in supporting them. And also in mid-July, we're going to have our next big open public meeting where we're going to be talking about the key issues for Edenbridge, and that could include what the impact's going to be of devolution on our town and what resources we will have, etc. So there's 2 big events coming up there, so keep your eyes open for that. Yeah, we hope we're going to see you there. Right. Moving on to this slide. Okay. So first of all, I want to say a big thank you to all of you for supporting NEDRA, because we genuinely couldn't do it without our members and their support. But here's the reality. Managing hundreds of individual membership renewals throughout the year is just not doable for such a small volunteer team. It takes up a lot of time and energy, and we'd much rather be spending that time working on matters for the community. So that's where we want to put our focus. So we'd like to try to move to a simpler system. So new members would still pay a one-off joining fee. But after that, we're asking everyone to support through voluntary donations. But let's be clear, those donations aren't a nice to have. They're how we have funds to do everything we do. So it's really important. We are really asking people to support us with donations. So if you value what we're doing, we're asking that you please make a contribution, however large or small. All of it is essential to us. You can do that tonight with a cash or a card at the back, or any time through the website under our donate tab, and we will be following it up with an email with a donate link in it. And we'll also be advising you if we need to raise money for a specific campaign, which is separate to the running of NEDRA, we'll also be letting you know, and that could be something like the water quality testing. If there is anybody in the audience here tonight, or anybody who knows somebody who's good at raising funding and applying for grants, we would love to hear from them. So please do pass that message on. But we do rely on our members, and we would appreciate your voluntary contributions. So I've got a small sample up on the screen here tonight. We've had some great feedback already from various people, and this chart gives a flavour of what's come up the most often, and which, not surprisingly, is the green spaces. Antisocial behaviour and support for our local shops are clearly big priorities. But we're going to open the floor now, because this is a chance to tell us what you think. No matter how big or small the idea, all voices are welcome. So if there's something on your mind, now's the time we're going to share it. So Ian and Paul, you're going to grab the microphones. So is there anybody who'd like to ask a question or raise an issue first? Yes?
As far as the membership is concerned, I mean, I rather assumed that we would be paying an annual membership fee. Is that not something that could be done very simply? That's the basis on which we join, and it happens every year, like a lot of other things that we are members of. Well,
we're hoping that you might do that contribution, that donation, voluntarily on an annual basis. The problem we have is we don't actually have the software or the technology to manage hundreds of subscriptions, because they're falling across the whole year. It's not like one sort of membership. So we may come back next year and say, look, that was a mistake. It didn't do what we needed it to do. But at the moment, when we've got such a small team of people, we wanted to give it a try, and we just hope that everybody will give us a donation instead of us doing a formal subscription where we have to send out messages and record who's paid and et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, from my point of view, I'd be quite happy to set up a direct debit that happens, or a standing order every year that happens, and maybe that's a suggestion that could be made to people, that they just set it up as an annual payment. Okay,
no, that's a good point. I think we should have. Okay. There's a gentleman at the back. Lennox. Thank you.
Good evening. Very good presentation, and thank you very much. One of the ideas I set to you, and I'd like to tell the audience, is regarding the memorial. And it's a question of really which people need to agree of where it should be placed, and obviously where it would be accessible. One of my ideas is actually done by the roundabout, and there will be a cost. Take it from where it's situated at the moment, place it where the Christmas tree is, or where the sign is, which is telling people they're coming into Edenbridge, but have the memorial actually freestanding. Because we do have a number of memorials in Edenbridge. We have one in the church, we have British Legion, there's one at Market Yard, I think there's about 4 of them in all, and they could either be transferred to that freestanding memorial. God forbid there be another war, etc., etc., but there will be things which are beyond our control. Because it's freestanding, then what conflicts, whatever, and people who we want to remember, they could then, their names and associations will be put on the back of it. So it will always be used, and it will be viewed by, as people come or leave the town, they will see this memorial.
Okay. That's
Just an
certainly
idea.
No, it's an idea.
Just thinking ideas for other people.
I'm not sure who the landowner is of the area.
The Great Stonebridge Trust own the land.
Okay.
So whether it's appropriate to ask them to say if they would allow it to be placed there, because the big problem is if it's moved from the hospital, the old hospital, where do we place it?
Yes, yes.
Which is accessible for people to see, to reflect and to remember.
Yeah. Okay, no, thank you. I'm sure that comment should be passed on. Is there anybody else who would like to? Yes, John?
Hello, John Isherwood, resident here for 17 years. After the fiasco of the meeting on the 7th, when councillors cravenly gave in to the massive new housing development on 4 Elms site, I would recommend to NEDRA that we adopt a nuclear option, i.e. informing the developers and planning authority that NEDRA will be publicising to prospective buyers the fact that the houses are on a floodplain or immediately adjoining it, and buyers will therefore probably be unable to resell the properties which they've purchased for up to £500,000. Thank you.
Thank you. I suspect we might get. I think we might get sued on that one. However, yes, I'm sure my assurance policy might go up significantly. I think what we can do is obviously try and do some more publicity, media sort of type publicity on that sort of subject. But no, thank you for that comment.
Kent County Council made a complete cock-up with Colbert's Way, because that's floodplain.
Right. So we've got somebody at the back, and did you want to elaborate on that? No.
Thank you. Newstead. I'm also just a resident. Has anything happened about the fish and chip shop, John Bell's site, which is still a terrible eyesore in the centre of the town, and it just makes everything around it look awful. And also any shops that are abandoned, again, like the old Oxfam shop, when you just walk down there, it's just full of rubble inside. So can't the council be persuaded to just, even if you just put blue paper or something over the windows? And I don't know about the fish and chip site, because that's just awful.
Okay, I think it was in the 2020. Lennox, I don't know, do you know, because you've obviously had a shop in the high street, is there knowledge of who all the different owners are of the properties like that?
The Clearwater and the site of
Right.
Tom Bell's and the car park.
Right.
when I was a councillor with my friends here, we kind of had to tread carefully because Clearwater, is it Clearwater or Freshwater? Freshwater. Freshwater give us free parking.
Right.
And if we upset them, they could close that car park off, and we have no car. That will just be a redundant area.
Right.
That could lead to other problems, antisocial problems, whatever. But they own that site. They've given us permission to become parked there. It's boarded off. At the time when it's boarded off, that was the way. Now, which the ladies implied, the new way of shops when they're closed, they put like coloured paper and all very, very pretty. If you go down shops in Bond Street or certain parts in Tunbridge Wells, you actually don't notice the shops are vacant.
Yeah.
You would just see this floral paper. Yes, I would encourage the landlords or the town council to impose these on shops which are empty, because yes, it is unsightly. But we do have to be. Sorry.
The beers are on you, Lennox.
We do have to be very careful
Yeah.
with that site. I mean, they've got one over on us.
Okay.
Because if we lose that free parking, it's an asset to the town.
I mean, I think it was put into the previous. There was a scheme put into the previous local plan, so it'd be interesting to see what comes back at the end of this year. Talking about the shops, that may be something we can discuss with the Chamber of Commerce if there's if there's a way that we might be able to address some of those.
But Tom Suganhat actually took on some people in another town. I can't remember which one it was. Where he says, 3 years is plenty empty, and for God's sake, it's like 30 bloody years empty, isn't it, here in our town? And I think, why should we give it to them? Just let them take it away. I mean, get rid of that car parking. We've got car parking in 2 other different places.
No,
be great.
Honestly, it will have a serious impact. One of our strengths is that we do have, not only by the station, but we do have free car parking, and we use that as our strength, along with others. Free up by the station approach. It's not you have to pay, but if we play to our strengths that we've got free parking.
Yeah, but it's just a smaller car park. We've got other car parks on the market.
Yep. We'll take that. Yes, there's a lady at the back. Thank you.
My concern is, and I think it's an accident waiting to happen, it could be an elderly person, a child, preschool child when they come out from the nursery. The double yellow lines in the high street, they're not working. There's a lot of double car parking outside Crosscutters, opposite the butcher's shop. I've come out of Hendon Court and I can't get out. They cross my drive, they cross their opticians. I notice cars are parking outside there, and they may be elderly or a bit frail, and they have to get out and go to the opticians for their appointment. But there's an awful lot of double-sided on the road now of traffic. I've seen cars even go up on the pavement to go around to allow other cars to come down. My concern is ambulances won't be able to get down there one day. There's going to be an enormous crash and somebody is going to get killed. And the nursery, the little young kids that are coming out there with their parents and that, not all of them are hand in hand and they could run out behind the parked cars. So that's my worry. You say about the parking, I agree, there's a lot of free parking. Why aren't people using it? They're not using it. The church car park is empty. That parking that you see around the corner where Waitrose is, it's not being used enough.
Okay.
But they all want to park in the high street.
Okay. I think that's a PAC conversation, isn't it? Yeah.
Ideally, I'd like to see pedestrianised high street.
Yeah.
No, nobody can go down
There is a PAC meeting being held in July. Can you remember the date?
There's a PAC meeting being held in April.
April. So, but
In a couple of weeks' time at the end of this month.
okay.
So I can raise that point at the PAC
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Lovely. Okay. Yes, we have Clive.
Those who know me would not expect me to leave without having said something.
Do you want to take a could you take a mic, because it just helps with the recording and also for anybody who...
Right, so we'll forget that part and we'll start now. Water quality in the River Eden, having been a former trustee of the Great Stonebridge Trust and town councillor, county councillor, and managed that site for the best part of 12 years, I think it was. I have some concern about what's going on, and I think there's a need for all of us to be confident and accurate and one voice on this particular problem. Because anybody who saw the South East News this evening on the television, the water company responsible for, as Peter said, most of the discharges of effluent into the river, has by law, and each water company has to do the same, set a number of emergency situations where it will discharge noxic fluids into the rivers, of which they are responsible. The water company did that, except that they now have gone back and they have revised it and considerably increased the number of discharges that will take place into the river. I think, therefore, that there's a combination here to fish slap round the face, not only what's happening locally within the River Eden, but also linked to the number of discharges and the times of the discharges into the river by the water company. I mean, it's not just this water company, but all water companies are appalling. That's the first point. And the second point, again, Edenbridge War Memorial. Anna will support me on this one, because I think we've banged heads and we've tried to bang other people's heads for a number of years on this, if not a decade and probably longer. The War Memorial is not the black marble slabs with the names on it. The War Memorial is and was dedicated as the hospital at a time after the First World War when there were hardly any medical facilities at all. In the houses opposite us, one of them was had a basement, and still has a basement, but that was used as an operating theatre where numbers of limbs were cut off and people died there. That's the same in many houses and many properties in this town. So the War Memorial, as the hospital, was established by, more of that later, to help those who could not afford to have their next of kin, kids in particular, taken to hospital for whatever the medical situation was. So any attempt to move the hospital is not just moving those slabs. It was dedicated with the great and the good present at that time, and it was a religious service. That religious service has to be, in inverted commas, undone, and wherever it goes, it's not just a question, oh, that's flat ground, oh, we can get 50 seats there, oh, we can have a band here. It is wherever the council stimulates the activities within this community to decide where it goes. And then the site and the memorial would have to be dedicated. Not the hospital doesn't have to move, but certainly the black marble slabs would. Lennox's point about having it separate and individual and prominent to anybody going in and out of town, another roundabout, fabulous. So that's another point. It's a good one. Next point, where are we on this one? The next point is we're about to go through some legal gymnastics, I suppose, not us, but certainly central government, about this thing called open spaces, the natural world, with a Labour government. Forgive me if there are any Labour supporters here. I'll shoot you afterwards. This is all to do with the fact that there is now something called the Natural England. Natural England is going to be given the responsibility to identify those areas of land that need to be preserved, and they can dedicate those to natural and to wildlife. So how that works together with, I do not know. Labour government, which hasn't had much hand-on natural world in the past, will now be working with Natural England to make sure that these things do happen. So, this is the document which I got the other day I won't tell you how much it cost, but it is good. It's a good document. You can read it because it's in English, and it will make sense. But it's going through Parliament at the moment. Having spoken to the chair, I'm very happy because this is, I mean, God knows how many pages there are now. This will cause considerable ripples throughout the country, particularly those parts of the country which do actually want and pride themselves in supporting the natural world.
So
We've talked about it in a number of ways, but this is more important in terms of it becomes a legal document.
Okay, so I think, obviously we just needing to move on because of other people, but I believe, Clive, that you would be happy to progress finding out more about that. We do have sites, wildlife sites, that are recognised in Edenbridge, which should be recognised within this. And we also have them through the Priorities for Nature. The River Eden has been identified within that scheme. So it would be good if we could make sure it's also recognised in this new legislation, if that gives us more comfort and protection. So you, I believe, would be happy to investigate that.
I'm happy to stay with it. It's going to go on for, I would imagine, be lucky if we see a result within 2 years.
Right.
It's going to go through Parliament, so that's a particular problem.
Okay.
There was one last point, if I put that down without...
Is there anybody else actually who wants to? There is. Okay. So, sorry. Is it a very, very quick point that you're going to make, Clive, or can I pass it over to somebody else?
I'm going to pass it on. Somebody else who wants it.
But please come and talk to us about those particular points afterwards. Thank you.
Sorry, my name's Keith Adams, and I can ramble on a bit as well. But first of all, I'd just like to say to NEDRA, thank you very much indeed for all you're doing for the town. You're doing an excellent job.
Thank
you. It did occur to me that, looking at the audience generally here, that there could be an input of more younger people.
Yes.
People who are maybe parents who've got children at school and so on, because they're the ones who are missing out with this secondary school nonsense. And what always amazes me is when you see this figure linked to housing. I think it's something like 1,000 houses generates 130 secondary school pupils. It's that kind of figure. So you're going to need an enormous amount of housing. But they never talk, of course, about money, the amount of money that parents are having to spend to send their kids to school, the amount of money that Kent County Council have to legally give to provide transport to the nearest secondary school, which is in Oxted. That's well over £200,000 for 175 pupils. There must be at least double that. There must be at least another 175 that are going to schools elsewhere that are having to be paid for by parents. So I think if we can somehow get more young people involved, or at least parents, so they can give a bit of thrust to their requirements. Maybe have one meeting where this kind of thing is discussed and try and actively get younger people involved.
No, we totally agree, and it is an audience we would like to encourage, because I think the wider our voices across a whole range of people, the better it would be for Edenbridge to have that input. We have somebody waving at the back of the... Are you allowed to talk? You've been talking all evening.
I'm a member too. I can talk. We do want young people. I don't know, it seems a long time ago I was a young person, but I do remember I would have probably not come near something like this with a barge pole, I'm not going to lie, because we've been very busy. They're all very busy, running around trying to bring up their kids and pay their mortgages and all the rest of it. So we are open to suggestions how to get the young people. If anyone's got any children of their own or grandchildren or anything like that in Edenbridge, by all means, please encourage them, or neighbours, and, maybe what we can do on Facebook is are they even on Facebook? But it's probably like Instagram or TikTok or something, we need to find out where they hang out, don't we? And try to encourage them. But yeah, we realise that. We're just not quite sure how to get them.
Okay, thank you. It's definitely fun.
For that, we need a youth club.
We do, yes.
That will bring them in.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. One more comment from Clive. Oh, we've got Anne. Well done, Anne. You're first in.
Could I just add to what Clive has said about the Memorial Hospital? Mm-hmm. The ground was given in 1919 for the people of Edenbridge as a memorial site. It was for their men that had given their lives for that site, and it's a memorial ground. It was given to the people of Edenbridge, and in 2014, NHS Properties Limited acquired it. And if you have to acquire something, it really means it doesn't belong to you. So I don't know, I've been trying to fight it, but it is a memorial ground. It was given to the people of Edenbridge, and it should remain as a memorial ground for the people. Many families still here, as they turned up at the service on Remembrance Sunday, have feelings for their relatives. Maybe they were 100 years ago, but many of the families are still here. We are celebrating the end of the war. We celebrated D-Day. Why do we forget the men that gave their lives? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Just a comment on that is that when the Memorial Hospital was established all those years ago, nobody for one moment thought that the war memorials would be moved or that the hospital would be closed. And the problem is no paperwork was put in place, no protections were put in place that I can hear of, I've seen. There's no evidence that we're being told unless somebody can find it. But I don't think they ever thought for one moment that that would happen, and nobody made any provision for who was going to look after that war memorial, and that's the other issue we've got. So I take your comments, Anne. It is a very emotional one, and it is something that means a lot to Edenbridge, but I'm not sure we have the legal wherewithal or money or evidence to be able to challenge it, unfortunately. Debs, you're at the back.
I was just going to say, we have actually done a bit of research on this, and on our website we've got a little bit about the history. Very interesting link to an article called The Real History of the NHS, and how the Labour government led by Clement Attlee established the NHS and basically took small hospitals and the land and everything else that came along with it to form the NHS. And our hospital ended up in amongst that taking.
Right, we're probably drawing the meeting to a close, but do you want to make your final comment, Clive?
Just one comment, Madam Chairman. Edenbridge Hospital was, as we've heard, dedicated as a war memorial. There were many small war memorial hospitals across the country that were dedicated, and I can't find out from any of the organisations how many are actually left. The fact that they're passing by means that the memorial has to be some other facility which might be acknowledged in 100 years, it will be replaced by something else. But for the time being, that land was donated to the community of Edenbridge by a Mr. Mason, who lived in the properties, the big houses, just opposite the entrance to the old hospital. Mr. Mason also owned property around this part of town, including the site, the other side of the roundabout that Lennox talked about, which is, those who know it, I mean, everybody knows it, it's nothing but brambles and rubbish and weeds that come over. But that was his land, and he went to sell it 10, 12 years ago. I tried to encourage the Great Stonebridge Trust to buy that as well as the other side, but 2 fingers was the appropriate view that the trustees at the time gave. And now they will find that those who do know and those who don't know, that site opposite where the Christmas tree goes is now earmarked for a planning application going in for house property to go there. Now, it's up for consultation. If anybody wants to go in, anybody can offer opinions on it. As far as I'm concerned, it's difficult, dangerous, and, you know, coming out of the property onto a public roundabout, very, very difficult. But that's the way the world is. If anybody, and this is a serious comment, if anybody wishes to object to that application, which is on the SDC planning guidelines, then please do so and be sensitive to the fact that the person who owns that property is of the offspring of the Masons who donated that land to Edenbridge at the top where the hospital was subsequently built. And can hospitals and memorials continue elsewhere? Yes, because that was the second memorial in Edenbridge. The first memorial was the Catholic Presbytery. So they can move.
Yes,
but they require dedicated religious services to establish and de-establish.
Okay, thank
Chairman,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And
thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm going to draw the meeting to a close and just thank you everybody for sharing their thoughts. It does help us with issues that we need to focus on, and we'll keep you updated and on board with information and follow-up. If there is a comment that you wanted to make but you felt you'd rather do it by email, please always feel you can drop a message to us on that. So thank you. So finally, it's just really to say to the people here, help us grow. We want more members than we have, and we want to have a stronger voice, and I pick up on what Keith's saying. We want to spread, get a younger profile into NEDRA as well, because they'll have a different approach to and different ideas that they can bring to it. So please spread the word to help us bring new people in. And if there's anybody sitting here who would like to join the committee or help us on specific projects, please do come and talk to us about it or contact us. We'd welcome you on board if you'd like to do that. And please give generously your voluntary donations. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.